Hey friends, what is up and welcome back to my channel. As you guys can tell from the title of today's video, this is going to be a what I read last week video as well as a bit of a review because I did only actually read one book. My life has been kind of all over the place and I took a day, I just sat at my boyfriend's house and literally read one book as opposed to trying to read over the week. I've just been focusing on work and focusing on family and him and like friends and stuff and just trying to get back to the essence of what it means to actually be alive. I think I got kind of lost in this cycle of going to work, coming home, playing video games, like going to sleep, waking up, going to work, over and over and over again. And occasionally it was, like doing like YouTube stuff and, I had deleted Twitter and I was feeling really disconnected. And I wanted to use that time since I was already feeling that way to just kind of, I was still sort of reading. You guys saw like a little bit of, like my weekly wrap-ups that I'd been reading, but last couple of weeks, I did just take some time. And part of that, because I was spending so much time with people and focusing on other things, I wasn't really reading. But I did read Serpent and Dove one afternoon while I was over at his apartment. He just worked from home and I just laid on the couch and literally read this book. I have a lot of thoughts on this. If you have, I don't know if the vlog is going to be up yet by the time I'm going to be releasing this, but I do have some pretty strong feelings about the book. Now, just to start it off, I gave it 2 stars, 2.5 stars. This is it used to be called the quarterly book club. I think it's our bi-monthly book club pick. So if you are in that group or you're planning on joining us for the live stream and you just kind of want to know my thoughts before we get into like the actual live stream, this video is for you. If you want to avoid spoilers, this video is not for you. I'm going to be spoiling the fuck out of this book because there's so many things within this, maybe not spoiling the fuck out of it, but I am going to be talking about mild spoilers. It's just, I have a lot of thoughts and they're pretty jumbled in my head because this book was kind of all over the place for me. Basically, what this follows is our main character's name is Lou. And Lou is a witch who sort of lives in, it gives me Paris vibes, like there's a lot of Parisian vibes throughout the book. They obviously speak in French sometimes. The like, I would say the clothes that they wear and the entertainment that they consume by way of like plays and such really give me that Paris vibe, which is one thing that I actually liked about this book. I am a big fan of that vibe. So there is something called Orlais or the Court of Orlais in Dragon Age Inquisition, which is my favorite video game. And I love it. Now they're very snooty. They're very like turn your nose up at you, very religion-based kind of society. And I feel like that really applied to this book as well. I feel like that vibe was kind of like carried into this for me. So I did like that aspect of it, but Lou lives there and she is a witch and she's pretty much a witch in hiding. Her and her, I would say best friend Coco are both witches and they are being hunted and obviously burned at the stake a la Salem witch trials. And that's kind of where the book lost me. There are a few minor things that I'll kind of get into as we talk about it, but mostly I have a lot of gripe with this book. Lou is in hiding because obviously there are, I can't remember what they're called, but chasseurs, I think is, I'm not good with the French language, so I'm going to butcher that, but they are people who basically work with a priest to catch witches and they burn them at the stake. Well, Lou magically one day falls in love with one because they are like, she's like trying to hide and there's like an attack by other witches and she runs into who is going to eventually be like her beau throughout the entirety of the book. His name is Reed. I couldn't even remember his name. But they have like a chance encounter, like she bumps into him and you find out later that Reed like immediately knew that he liked her and he was really like kind of torn up about it. Throughout the entirety of the book, Reed does not know she's a witch and that plays into things because Lou gets caught later on, and in a way to try to get information from her, somehow she magically gets forced to marry Reed and live in this tower with all of these other witch hunters. And Coco at one point in time also lives in the tower. She like works up in like the top part of the tower to kind of do these magical tests on people who have been affected by witches. Because witches in this society, from Lou's perspective, are either very kind and very good and just like the average person, a la like witches in our everyday life now, or they are like soul-sucking like vampires basically. So when they do attack people, they do have these adverse reactions on them because they basically steal like their life essence and they, give them nightmares or they, there's just a lot of crazy things that happen. So Coco at one point in time also lives in this tower. And that really baffled me because when they use magic in this story, there is a bit of a scent that happens. There's a very like, I would say like metallic-y scent and sort of like taste that you can kind of sense there's been magic used. So Lou throughout the story and Coco throughout the story are trying to kind of cover their tracks when it comes to using magic, because the overall arching story is that Lou is trying to escape her mother, which is why she agrees to marry Reed in the first place, because Reed, she thinks, can protect her or gain her some kind of amnesty in the short term, because her mom, being the most powerful witch, won't come and hunt her. And the reason why her mom is trying to hunt her is the kingdom is obviously ruled by a king and his family, and if her mom ends up killing her, like actually killing her, the entire line of the kingdom will die, and basically the persecution of the witches will die. And Lou doesn't want that. She doesn't want needless bloodshed. Now, it's kind of confusing because Lou throughout the book tends to be, I would say, more cutthroat and very selfish, and I didn't dislike her as a character. That's another thing. I actually sort of enjoyed Lou, even though I feel like her character development, or like the overall who she was as a character, was kind of confusing to me, mostly because I feel like towards a portion of the book when her and Reed really fell in love post being married for forever, she sort of changed, and I feel like it tends to be for me in like YA books, because this is a YA book, that characters change when they fall in love. And it's normal and natural to kind of like for me, like when I'm around my boyfriend, I'm very calm and I'm very, you know, like even now, like I tend to have road rage, but like right now my road rage is like completely in check. So it's normal to get like some like comfort from somebody and some change from somebody, but I feel like Lou's character became kind of unlikable to me. But overall, like the heart of her was still sort of there. So it is kind of confusing in that front. But basically, that is the entirety of the story. There were a couple of things within this that I also found semi-offensive, and I think this has sort of been addressed before. I'm going to just kind of briefly address it here. I will list Bow Ties and Books videos down below. Jessie did an amazing job kind of like laying all of this out. I'll see if I can find any other ones, but basically, the two big issues that I had with this book were there was a bit of, I would consider, transphobia, because, and it's very, I feel like a lot of people like defend this book in that way, and you know, you can address something problematic and not necessarily, you know, if you still love the book, you still love the book, but it's normal to find, I think in this day and age, something problematic and call a spade, it is what it is. But there is a lot of points in time in this book where there are addresses to the way Lou looks, because she tends to kind of like be secretive and sort of dress like a boy. There are a lot of mentions of the fact that her name is Lou because she refuses to go by like her full name, and it's kind of like subtly like kind of made fun of in the story. But I think the thing that really drove home it for me is within the story there are times when within the covens it's spoken about how women are the most powerful, and what truly makes a woman is the ability to have children. And that really kind of like reading it really, for me, made me feel like that is not the definition of a woman. Like I feel like a lot of people tend to think like the definition of a woman is, you know, female body, able to have babies, you know, have your period. And as somebody who has a lot of transgender friends, I know that's not fucking true. Like I know transgender men that are able to have children and have their periods. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like for me, it could have had more sensitivity reading, and I took about a half a point off for that. That really, really kind of bugged me. The other thing that I didn't like about this book is there is a Black character in the book, and while she is introduced much later and very, I would say, briefly, I think that the story could have benefited from a bit more information on her. She is a childhood best friend of Lou. Now, Lou left when she was like 15, 16 to leave her coven. So there's 16 years of this girl that she is friends with, that she considers her like childhood best friend sister, who is reintroduced to the story later, that there's just no backstory. And the only way that character, you'd be able to tell that she was Black at all, was the very vapid, like she has ebony skin, like she has dark skin, and that was literally it. And I feel like the story could have benefited a little bit more from that. And the reason why I feel that these things stick out so much for me personally, like had I read it and it would have been like a passing thing, I would have felt differently. But there is so much attention, and I did enjoy this part of the book. There's so much attention brought to the fact that the women of the coven prefer to sleep with and be with other females. So it was like, we're trying to be cool here and bring attention to the fact that these characters, these super powerful, feminine, fucking wonderful characters are gay. Like, there was so much like forced, like semi-forced like representation in that way. And it's like, okay, so if you're going to bring and try to make casual the fact that most of the witches in this coven prefer to sleep with other women, and there's like a lot of like fluidity in that way, I feel like it could have been applied a little bit more to other things. Now, overall, for this story, I didn't feel like it was particularly strong in many other ways aside from those. I did not like Lou and Reed's relationship. It felt really weird to me. I didn't like Reed as a character a whole lot either. He felt very one-dimensional, and once again, when he started really falling for Lou, that's when we got a little bit more information on him and he started sort of changing. But up until that point, I didn't really understand necessarily who he was. The plot twists in this book are really boring. I'm not going to spoil that part of the book, but it was kind of dumb for me. I didn't really enjoy that. I will say another thing that I did enjoy about this book, however, is at one point in time, there is consensual sex between Reed and Lou. Lou has a bit of a more experienced past. Reed is obviously a virgin because he's taken, I don't want to say a vow of celibacy, because men in their society and with like his group of people do marry when they feel like the temptation is too much. And that is a way to kind of like choose a woman that works for them in the sense of like what also works for the church. So when him and Lou do decide to finally have sex, Lou is much more experienced than Reed. And I feel like the sex itself within the book was not fade to black, and it was more in depth than I think I was really expecting from a YA novel. So Lou does kind of try to help Reed and get him to sort of see like, this is how you do things, and this is how like being intimate with somebody is, and there's like little jokes here and there, and I felt like it was very realistic to how sex would be if you yourself were a virgin and your partner was more experienced. And as somebody who views sex in that way, as like I'm not very timid about it. I'm pretty open about it. If you like know me in real life, like I everybody like a lot of people have sex, like we're all doing it, like we're just talking about it. But as somebody who views sex as something that should be open and discussed like that, and like especially that aspect of it, like learning your partner's body and learning like what makes them tick and what they like and don't like. I really liked that representation in this book. I thought that was really cool as well. I think Shelby definitely hit the nail on the head with that one. So there was just a few things about it that I didn't really enjoy, and there were a few things about it that I did really enjoy. It was a really polarizing book. Overall, I think the story was pretty boring for me. I feel like the representation for witches as a whole was kind of weird as well. I mean, obviously it's a fantasy novel, and like the witches that I know and love today are very different from like obviously the witches represented here, but it was kind of, I feel like a lot of the like connection to nature and stuff was kind of lost in this book, but you don't really know like necessarily what kind of vibe the author's going for. I'm considering, even though I gave this a 2.5, reading the second one, because I think the side characters were more dynamic for me than the main characters, especially Coco. I think Coco had a lot more depth than the like main characters in the book. And I think that I'm excited to see sort of what happens with her, because at the end of the book, characters decide that they are going to go actually try to seek help from Coco's coven, which they are blood witches. And I'd be really interested to see kind of how that plays out, because I think that kind of witchcraft, like in the fantasy sense, really appeals to me, like as like a character, like getting to know Coco and getting to know her coven and that kind of thing. I'm pretty excited to get like kind of like the actual blood witch portion of like the whole story. So I'm considering just like borrowing from the library the second one, just to see like more of Coco's side of things, because I did really like her. If I could have a book, if this book could have been written from Coco's perspective, I think I would have liked it a lot more, because there's more subterfuge on her part, and I feel like she was doing the really sneaky stuff, and I feel like she was the one who really grew throughout the story, and she was the one who was doing all of like the really cool things. And I feel like Lou and Reed's story was just like really fucking boring to me. But yeah, like I said, it's a really polarizing book. Like my best friend gave it 5 stars. She fucking loved it, and I was like 2 stars. So let me know down below if you've read this and what you think of it, and kind of your overall thoughts on things, because like I said, I know a lot of people are saying this book isn't problematic, and it is, and it's been like a back and forth thing, and I mean, we all have our opinions, and what you gain from things or what you gain from things, and I can't tell you how to feel, just like you can't tell me that I'm wrong for feeling the way that I am, but I'd like to have, like, you know, a dialogue on stuff. So that is going to be it for this video. That is what I read this week, and that is what I thought of Serpent and Dove. I do own this book now. I wish I would have got it from the library. I don't know if I got this in like Fake Crate or something, but I own it now, so whatever. But yeah, I'm going to be borrowing the second one from the library. But yeah, let me know down below what you guys thought of this. I'm going to start rambling. I think I got my words as cohesive as possible. I haven't really been sleeping much recently, but that is going to be it for this video. I love you guys so, so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.